Hello, dear folks. Welcome to the show. Jack Xiao is my name on the East West Show with G and E TV. Well, every time when time allows, when situation allows, every time when we take a little respite from the big celebration of gay marriage legalization, we probably shall find some time to entertain ourselves, to look around everywhere else about the world that we are in, that we call home, that we call a village. What's going on? First, we're talking about our oil versus the summer. And I'm talking about summer demand, right? And secondly, we're talking about the ISIS attack situation. There are warnings, there are the quote unquote warnings, the rumors that are going around. And then we shall talk a little bit about grace. Grace is no longer graceful. It's something we really have to talk to. Joining me, my good friend, Mr. Drexel Smith, an expert in energy. I call it new energy, green energy, an expert of Middle East regional issues. And also now we're stretching that to cover the grace problems now. So welcome, Drexel, to the show.
Jack, always good to see you.
All right, sure, same here.
Happy summer.
I'm getting excited already.
You're getting
it's been a
excited
long
about the
time.
summer.
You had vacations for almost everywhere, right? One time I called you, you were in Bahama Desert, and the next thing I know, you were on a cruise ship somewhere down the ocean with some kind of like, anyway, Mediterranean?
Yeah, no.
Anyway, I'm joking. So, how are you doing?
Excellent. Life is treating us well.
So, this summer, looking at gasoline price, though,
Yeah.
which is so heavily related to oil demand and supply, we first see a hike to hit almost the $4 mark.
In the spring.
In the spring, no, exactly. You're probably due to transaction between spring and summer. And we saw that kind of a surge. And later, it subsided a little bit to now, according to my record last night, I got something like a 349.99, something like that. Okay. So, number one, what happened during the time when we saw the hike? And what is happening now? Number three, what are we expecting for this summer as our gasoline, which we live on, please?
In 5 words or less.
Okay. No, you can go more.
Yeah, I think if you look at, let's go back to the oil. If you go back to the oil, within the past year, oil has been very volatile price-wise. Oil was over $100 a barrel, dropped this spring to its biggest low in a long time, in the $40, and now it's back up to 60, the low 60s.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, and oil right now is sort of in a stabilized supply-demand mode. Many oil rigs have been taken offline, but others have come on. Demand has been pretty stable, and it seems to me that we have a stable issue of supply, demand. You and I talked in the last show we did about $40 was too low, but $60 seems to be a minimum to allow producers to continue to do some amount of research and some amount of work.
Enough
and
stimulation.
We're kind of in
enough
that,
stimulation. Yeah.
Yeah, we're sort of in that everything is stable right now. I don't like to do much in the way of predictions, but you asked, and I will say, unless something in the world happens that's catastrophic that we don't know.
I see. Yeah, we should not happen.
If things continue as they are, I think we're in a period of just equilibrium. Things.
You mean over the course of this summer?
Yeah, for the next, for the foreseeable next 90 days.
Okay.
I see we'll continue to be at this equilibrium
Which
where
is-
you don't have a group that's trying to push the price of oil up so they can make a living. $60, people can kind of be there. You don't have another group that's trying to force it down again. You have supply and demand sort of equalizing.
I see.
You've got pretty much stability around. There's no real drivers, so I don't expect a lot to change in the next 90 days.
Good, good. That probably says easy to my mind. But thing is that how come in the exact time, during the exact time of the past spring though, when the price dropped to record low and we saw the gasoline pump record high?
Well,
Just the contrary, opposite to each other.
yeah. Remember, there's not necessarily a direct one-for-one correlation between the base price of oil and what you pay at the pump.
Dan.
Because there's a number of steps, as you know. You have issues with refineries, and we had some catastrophic issues with some coming and going. You have the transition of what they call the summer fuel that's more expensive.
I see.
And then you've got the opportunistics where the retailers think they can make an extra buck because there's a holiday period, more people in cars. So the fluctuation at the pump is a little bit different
All
than
I
the-
need to
than the
find out
fluctuation in the oil price.
Yeah, all I need to find out is it more of a articulated situation or is it more of kind of a supply and demand and self-adjustment?
Well, I think my first underlaying is it's supply and demand and adjustment depending on all those factors. What's happening with the refinery, what's happening with the distributors, what's happening with the retailers, what's happening with demand. You know, if they think that they can make an extra 10 cents a gallon, they're gonna do it. Of course, they're business people. But I think overall, my view is of both oil and the price at the pump is this period of equilibrium.
All right, all right.
And I don't think you're going to see a dramatic change unless something in the world changes.
In other words, even though we can't call it a celebration, we can still hold on to it for this kind of relatively balanced situation between demand and supply, right?
That's my view, and that's
Right.
the view of you know, people that look at this.
Is there
in detail.
anybody's effort involved in bringing the balance back, or it just totally happens naturally?
Well, I think it happens with a lot of circumstances, Jack. Again, the circumstances is the things we've talked about. If you have a major disruption in a refinery that's making the special summer blend, that could interrupt. And we had that a year or two ago
All right.
when the big Standard Oil refinery went down. So, yeah, a major impact to a refiner or a distributor could change the game.
I see.
But I think everything is running fairly smooth. Now, what are the factors that could change? There's still a lot of controversy on the fracking that's going on in the U.S.
Yeah, yeah, and
You
also
know, people are
the,
talking more about the earthquakes in Texas and the environmental consequences. And I've shared with you my personal view. I love the fact that the United States is producing more than it's using for the first time in a long time. I like the fracking technology. I think it's great. But I think the jury is still out on the long term, what the consequences are and how long we can depend on this.
I see, I see.
If I was to place a long-term bet, I still see oil getting higher.
Exactly the point. Because, you know, on the second layer of the question, though, you'll find that there is always a contradiction. They do themselves. For example, the more stability the situation is, the more dependence that makes a human to rely upon.
Yes.
Right? The less call for supplement or replacement new energies. Right? On the other hand, the worse the situation is, the higher the price, the more the calls that go other ways, right? So how do you balance these? Once again, we're talking about different kind of balances
That's
towards
right.
a longer run, right?
Well, and again, I think I like to start with the fossil fuel that comes out of the ground, because I've said repeatedly on your show, that's still a defined amount of energy and resource that we're just burning. So I think in the ascent of man, if you look in the totality, it's sort of dumb just to burn oil. It has other uses.
You're right, yeah.
So I'm part of the group that says we need other alternatives. And I'd like to see more money spent in hydrogen and other technologies.
Sure.
I'd like to see more money spent on the development of energy storage systems. And I'm very pleased that Elon Musk has chosen to go forward with his large battery facility in Nevada, because I think that will drive the cost of electric vehicles down, which I think is all part of the solution.
Sure.
But to your point, if gas at the pump was $1 more, more people would be buying fuel-efficient vehicles.
You're right. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You're
and
talking
where
about
it is
push.
today, it's a little bit of a ho-hum.
All right.
But the truth of the matter is, the average person is still spending a significant percent of their revenue on energy.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely
And it's
right.
too high.
Very good. Okay, my dear audience, today joining me is my good friend, Drexel Smith. He's an expert on energy. Not only that, he is an expert on energy consultations. He is holding a position, a very high-ranking position, being a consultant for a U.S.-China energy program that he flies back and forth to give people advices. Of course, they are high-end advices, right? So Drexel Smith is not only an expert on gasoline, on oil, he is an expert on some regional problem, namely Middle East. So let's take a short moment out. When we come back, of course, every time when you talk about oil, you cannot talk about oil alone. It has something to do with the situation, with the stability of that region. So stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Hello, my dear fellow Americans, my dear audience. I love you so much. Everything that is related to your day-to-day life, though, that's my interest. So, oil. Oil is the thing. It's a major concern, especially when you talk about the summer, a huge summer, especially this kind of a summer. Oh my God, we see 105 already, right, for the past week. So you are talking about by a huge amount of oil and oil supplies as versus oil price, gasoline price. Now, every time when you stick your head into the problem of gasoline and gasoline prices, you can't just talk about that only. You always have to link your problem to the Middle East situation, the regional stability, right? Now we heard the rumors that has it saying that they are mobilizing the ISIS, mobilizing those lonely wolves to do the individual attacks, including our gas stations, our train stations, our airport, our single officers on the street, so on and so forth. So, and that is really a threat, right? The way I look at it. So, how do you, as an expert, going back and forth of that region so many times yourself, read the situation about the growth of ISIS, please?
Well, personally, I'm very concerned about the growth of any radical group, especially a radical group that has been so vocal since their beginning of seeing the United States as their target.
As their only enemy.
They see the United States, our way of life, and who we are as their big threat. Of course, that's a big concern. And I think to turn our back and to say we're just hopeful that our law enforcement agencies can manage the threat, I think is probably naive.
Naive.
I think all of us need to continue to be vigilant. All of us need to be aware that potential threat exists. And I'm very concerned about it.
It does.
Do I have any inside knowledge? No, I don't. I'm not in the intelligence gathering world.
You're not in the situation room.
But just look at the facts. The facts are that these radical elements have done an excellent job of targeting specific opportunities from downing airplanes to the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
I consider the Pacific Gas and Electric substation just a trial run to see how vulnerable taking out a major substation would be to impact our electrical grid. I think these are all tests, and I think it's a big concern.
You know, Drexel, my dear friend, what bothers me are really considerations in two categories. Category number one, I'm always doing a comparison about the situation, about the terrorist attack prior to the war and now. Are we getting better or are we getting worse? Are they getting stronger or are they getting weaker? The answer remains there, not to be answered. Everybody knows that, number one. All right, now, once the war is waged, once we fought a war already, we are in it already, we have created a situation already though, the best way to get rid of the problem is that to take it back or to go to more extent, to get to the very end, to fight till the very end, right? So now, exactly because of that consideration, there is a call, very strong call, especially on the right-hand Republican side, say, hey, let's do some ground attack, let's get some ground troops on there to get the whole thing diminished, to get it off once for good, once for all. So, do you think that's a serious concern, that's durable or not durable?
Jack, I think...
Hard one.
Yeah, no,
Hard one. I know.
I think the idea of bombing a group of people back to the 15th century is a little bit naive of what the issues are. To me, and again to repeat a little bit what we've exchanged on this show before, the Middle East in totality has a rich history going back thousands of years with different religious sects, many of which all carry the banner of Islam from Muhammad.
Their religious belief.
Strong beliefs. But yet, in the past 1,200 years, different groups formed. And as an example to the challenge, we have a group of people that want to give arms to the Kurds in the northern part of Iraq.
All right, that starts.
Okay, to fight the ISIS.
Yeah.
You have another group that says, oh no, we shouldn't arm the Kurds. Their history is not good.
All right, okay.
And then you have the influence of the neighbors. Saudi Arabia has a strong opinion about which group should be supported and not. You have the issues in Iran, which are clearly making fools of our State Department and their ability to negotiate. These are all moving pieces that's hard to contain. And again, I would like to see, if I could be in a leadership mode,
say like President Obama.
Yeah, the opportunity for us to bring the world leaders together and to say the U.S., China, Russia, and the rest of the world stand firm. we're not going to tolerate this anymore.
We're not
as a
going to
group.
tolerate or we're going to touch anything.
We're not going to tolerate all of this nonsense.
And then how do you want to do it?
I think we get the world leaders to help, because right now you've got the United States supporting some groups, you got Russia supporting another group, thinking that that's
All right,
their
okay.
way to do things.
Okay.
Everybody's manipulating the Middle East like marionettes, and everybody in the world wants their oil, but nobody in the world wants their political and religious nonsense. So how do you sort that out? And I think maybe the real opportunity here is for the leadership in the world to take a stronger role together.
Am I naive if I say, going back 1,200 years to an area which has never seen peace, right? If you stop anybody, ask them what a peace looks like, nobody even know what peace means. Just like a blind man, born blind, you just try to describe to him how beautiful sunshine is. He just let you talk, right? That's it, right? So now, my question is am I naive if I say nobody, whoever, is going to make peace there? To an area, to a special region that has the traditional problems. Being problematic is the nature.
I think your point's
comment?
very valid, and your question is very real about can we ever have peace as you and I know it? And the answer
That's
may very
exactly
well
my
be,
question. Yeah.
I think if you look at history over time, the times that there's been peacefulness and a lack of discord is when you had a very strong leader that said,
But we ousted him.
well,
We hang him.
we did in the case of one, but
And the other one we took care of too.
which other one?
Yeah.
The place is full of,
you know those
know.
two guys, right? You know those two guys anyway.
Yeah. The issue here is, the Middle East only respects strength.
Yeah, you're right. The dictatorship, call it dictatorship.
Yeah.
Be it a religious dictatorship, be it a governmental dictatorship, dictatorship is the thing that they will go by.
Well,
Am I right?
the type of republic, democracy, and public participation that we have enjoyed in the U.S. and much of the world, I question whether it can be in several of the countries in the Middle East.
In other words, the answer to my question is that if I call that, I'm not naive at all.
I don't think you're naive at all.
All right, very good. All right, thank you for that, my good friend. You're really my friend. You prove yourself to be my good friend. My dear audiences, we are about to take a very little break. When we come back from the break, though, we'll pick up from the very point. Once we have started something, and then now we're in the process of doing it. So is it better we back off, or is it better we go to the most extent, good or right, good or wrong, right or wrong, we did it, let's go for it, right? So now that's the call about our ground troops to be involved. Is it necessary, or is it too naive, or is it too demagogue kind of thing? I don't know. So we'll be right back. Hello, dear folks, my dear audience. Welcome back to the show. Just forgive me. I'm not trying to drag you along from problem 1 to problem 2, or to problem 3, still going further to problem 4. Though I'm very sorry. I didn't want to do it. The fact is that we do have those problems. Right? Those problems are our reality that we cannot just close our eyes, just put our heads in the sand, say no, nothing happens. We can't do that, right? That's even more naive than I am, right? Well, all right. my naivety being denied by my good friend Drexel Smith and an expert of the regional problem in the Middle East of those areas. And we started even though with oil problems, and then now that oil we know is related with the stability of that area, right? And we're talking about the area, we have to go back into history to find out what is going on, to find out what we did, is it necessary or not. And then we came to a point, which is exactly the point that once we're on it, once we're halfway, once we're almost done though, is it better or smarter we draw back, say, oh, forget, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have touched you, right? This is one solution. Or is it like, let's go for it, for the heck of it, right? So now that comes to the call, say, let's mobilize our certain numbers of ground troops with an air raid, right? Get rid of the whole thing like a blanket, like that. So shall we do that, or can we do that, or what the international community would say if we did that? Please, a harder one, I know.
Very challenging.
Don't feel
because
chilled, yeah.
remember, U.S. troops went in and stabilized a number of areas, Mosul and many cities throughout Iraq, that now are controlled again by ISIS. The people in the region need to stand up and take responsibility of which group of guns they're going to support. And right now, it's not evident to me that we should, that it would make any sense for us to put ground troops in the game. To what end? We did that. We went and took a city and said, people in the city, this is now yours, govern and control it.
Relatively, at the time when we were occupying the cities, though, situations were better.
It was very stable.
Yeah.
And the cities were basically operating as though they were in the 21st century. And now we've got some cities that are all the way back to
18th
Sahara
and 18th
rule of,
or 15th.
yeah. And I'm saying, at what point do the people that are there need to stand up and take responsibility? The people in those communities said, we want to get rid of this dictator. He's got horrible things, he's got this, he's got that. We want your help to get rid of this dictator. We did that. And now what we have is chaos. And it's chaos not in one country, but in others.
It's a melee.
How do you deal with a mentality of people that are so passionate in their belief that they're destroying antiquities?
Not only is
Why would you want to destroy your history and your antiquity?
I know, but it's never been peaceful. That is the problem, right? So any efforts trying to make anything there just wouldn't happen. Just wouldn't work.
Well,
Right.
if I could make a personal
So now
vote,
that understanding that anything wouldn't work, so let's do something in a more supreme way. So let's invade one more time.
well, who do we invade?
Those areas, to retake the cities, to retake the power, to act like dictator.
Jack, it's like pushing on a balloon. You put your finger in and the air just pops out over here. I don't know you've done anything to solve the problem. We did that. If there was a community of people
But
that
they
stood
are-
up and said, I need your help, I would be listening to them.
But they are beheading our brothers and sisters. So they are threatening to launch attacks.
Their behavior.
Even this 4th of July, they're saying they doing the lone wolf attacks to our airports, to our train
Now
stations,
bringing-
substations,
no,
whatever.
That changes the game. That's bringing the problem to the U.S.
No, we're talking their home base. The best way is to attack their home base rather than those lone wolves walking on the street, though.
But my question to you is, who is they?
I don't know. Okay.
Well, see,
You got me that.
that's the problem.
You got me that way.
Yeah, I mean, who do you go bomb? If there was a specific target of opportunity, I could say maybe yes or no. But what we're looking at here is religious groups that are competing with each other for control, and we're being put in a position to support one over the other. I think a big part of the solution, if I can come back and tie the knot of energy, if we could become more energy independent
Independent.
and
yes.
less dependent, I would say, let the rest of the world say, keep your oil.
Keep your oil, yeah. So
Okay.
we're out of it.
And that shuts off the money
All
that they're
right.
simply
Good,
using
good,
to
good.
finance all of this nonsense. And again, I come back to call on, if the U.S. and China, who is now a major consumer of oil as their economy continues to grow, if we could go together and say, we're done with your oil. You guys go back to sticks and stones
Okay,
if that's what you want to do.
enjoy your oil.
Do your
That's it,
thing.
right?
We
your
don't
own
care
thing,
anymore.
right? Okay, anyway. Oh, yeah. Speaking of that problem, though, the Iranian nuclear program is another threat.
Well, I think it's a horrible threat.
Yeah, another threat, right?
Yeah, and
the other day
I think
read
this negotiation
the other
that's
day,
going
the other
on-
day I read much material that says that using just 10% of the nuclear powers that mankind so much so far in possession, it will be enough to destroy 4 planet Earth.
Well, I think we clearly have the capability to destroy the Earth's environment that we know it today. And that's
So
why they referred to the agreements as MAD, mutual assured destruction,
and
because it is MAD.
that's why
You destroy mankind.
that's why Albert Einstein once said that though I do not know what they shall find their World War III with, I know for sure they will find the 4th with the sticks and the stones.
This is true. And again, Jack, it comes back to me that the interrelationship here between energy independence, between a robust economy, okay, and a not robust economy is what drives a lot of these issues. And we wanted to talk a minute about Greece, but I wanted to sort of tie that a little bit.
Sure.
Because
Let's
here
leave
is a-
that part to the next segment. I got a quick question to ask,
Yep.
though. Are you saying the international community has yet no uptake of a Iranian nuclear programs?
I'm saying
Upper hand? No.
very few people appreciate the significance. I think we got rid of weapons, beginning with the agreements with Russia in the 80s to eliminate a lot of these weapons between the 80s and 90s. But now we have radical elements that are gaining access, and this issue with Iran is
The
very
nuclear
concerning.
power control is getting weaker and weaker rather than like 2 decades ago was so tight.
Well, at one time when you only had 4 or 5 countries with nuclear capability,
Now you're talking about
nuclear
11.
weapon. Now we have more countries
Yeah.
and more countries that want to gain access and more countries that are radical in their behavior.
Yeah, it gets proliferated just during the course of when you try to tighten it, right? So, my dear audience, who's joining me today is my good friend. To him, I owe a big appreciation to his, of course, not only his credential, but also his clear view of the world problem, going from problem 1 to problem category 2, problem category 3. Well, I recall that once upon a time, there was a guest, very smart guest, on my show who told me a very useful proverb saying that if you can't find it, follow the money. Right? probably we should use that as a drag line to drag ourselves into the next segment when we talk about our problems. Of course, we're talking about grace. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Hello, my dear fellow Americans. Welcome back to the show. Thank God we have such a great country, such a great nation, united as one, trying to make our world better, right? Yet we got a job to do somewhere, somehow we have to worry about somewhere else of this world. We have to bring freedom to other countries. We have to sell our democracy to such as Iraq, which they didn't buy, right, now. And we have, of course, our oil dependence to that areas, which is so problematic. You have to, well, every single minute to put lots of efforts to take care of that, so which you can never do enough now. Well, we lay all three categories of problems all together with the three segments previously. Now it all leads to one point, money, which is money. Like I said, the big quotation, if you can't find it, follow the money though. Speaking of following the money, in order to follow money, what's happened with grace lately? Everybody is talking about grace. Those Greeks are what? They're going crazy or what? So your comment, please?
The issue with Greece troubles me greatly. In some respects, maybe more than the Middle East, because the Middle East is bringing back conflicts of hundreds or thousands of years of who's going to control what, somewhat understandable. The issue with Greece is a more modern problem. Here we have a society that over the past 40, 50 years has become, more people in Greece have become more and more dependent on services and benefits from the government. And consequently, the government has gone broke. The government has borrowed money to continue the payments of Social Security.
Operation.
And the economy has not been robust enough to pay for all of these tremendous services that the Greek citizens have demanded. So we now have, for the third time in the past, well, in the 21st century, Greece saying, I can't pay my bill.
Yeah, I'm broke.
I'm broke.
Yeah.
The last time,
I'm a dead horse.
the last time, major controversy, the world markets went into chaos, and Germany came to the rescue and said, we'll help broker a deal, but only if you make a commitment, to get yourself reformed, meaning you pay less out, you work on your economic issues, you work on your long-term issues, and here 3 years later,
absorb your problems, yes.
3 years later, they haven't done that. So I see this as an indicator and a wake-up call for the people of the United States. That's what happens when you allow debt to control you. That's what happens when you get too many people on the dole and not enough people working. That's an example of what can happen. That problem, in my opinion, Jack, far exceeds the issue of whether we pay $2.50, $3.50, or $4.50 a gallon at the pump. Okay, because we're not paying attention. We have way too much debt.
That exactly reminds me about the U.S. economy. There are two perspectives. Number one, the U.S. economy itself. Do you recall, or don't you recall, a few months ago we had this kind of minimum wage, hourly wages increase from whatever, starting
Yes.
with the hotel workers,
Yes.
gonggoers. Those guys were acting almost say they are getting money from the tree, right? Money could probably be dug out just from the earth like potatoes, right? Like that kind of thing, right? So money, 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 they all talk about numbers without knowing what numbers mean. So now, and then another example would be about the city of LA with those pension plans promised that contracted during the good times, right? And now they're facing
Yes.
a big problem, which is a debt sky high.
Yes.
Now going on and on. And another good example, which is better still though, we're still call it that way, our social security system, right? We have so much promises, and then versus the baby boomer coming, so on and so forth, then we're facing another dead wall. So altogether, I believe that your warning makes lots of sense to the U.S., to our citizens, to our fellow Americans, that it's time to be vigilant.
Absolutely. What
What happened in Grace now should be us,
Absolutely.
right?
It can happen. And, you know, I want everybody to have an opportunity to enjoy a good life.
Okay.
But, Jack, if you've only prepared yourself with education and hard work and skills to do a menial level job,
That's not enough.
it's not enough.
Not enough.
And where the disconnect happens with me is I say, okay, your wage goes up 50% from $9 to $15. Don't you understand that the price of a hamburger
Yeah.
is going to
You're
go
right.
up
You're right.
50%?
And also the
And the
size of
price-
the size of hamburger is going to shrink. Going to be jumbo like this.
You see, the tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And all you've done is to make everything that you touch
You're right.
more expensive.
You're right. All right. All right.
And if people would adjust their salary to the
Yeah.
price of
And the-
their rent, their car, their hamburgers,
and I
they'd
may
understand.
yeah I just back to do a little insertion to back you up, right? Thing is that on the other hand, conceptually, this society mobilized so much kind of ego media to do the propaganda, I call it propaganda about wealth, right? By doing the top 500, top 100, top 10, the richest, so on and so forth, and then there's stock exchange, Wall Street stuff, right? And who gets rich, the Warren Buffett, whatever, stuff like that. Those are heroes and stars. My question is that if nobody jumps over the window of a 14th building, so how can you make money? If I don't jump over the window, how can you make your money, right? So it's not a productive production.
Well,
It's a kind of like a little game, right? You're playing symbols. Now, I'm saying that not only on the economical side, when the number is concerned, but also on the conceptual side, though. Conceptually, the whole society is misleading. Am I right?
you mean in terms of the search for living a wealthy life?
Yeah, yeah. And it's totally wrong, totally going of nowhere.
Well, and we have kids that are 21 that look at their parents' home that they've acquired possessions over 40 years, and they want the same thing day one.
Yeah. They stick to
And
parents.
they go into debt for that, and they go into debt for everything. To me, the hard piece here is all about debt.
Worse still, taking Grace for example, I mean bad one.
Yes.
When Grace goes down the drain though, so are the creditors, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The creditors, their money go down the drain along with the Grace. Say, I'm broke, okay, I'm a dead horse. I know I'm sorry, I know I owe you, but I don't have money to pay you, right? That's it. So now if the same thing happens to the United States after your analysis or my analysis or whatever, we see probably there is a big possibility of doing that, right? Now, China is the biggest creditor of U.S. debt though. When the U.S. goes that way, where's China?
They want their money.
They want the money, right? So,
But-
and the United States would be saying, "Oh, I'm very sorry, dear brother China.
Yeah,
I don't have money to pay you."
yeah. Come
So-
take Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, well, come take Disneyland.
What do you do?
Come take whatever,
Yeah.
right? So
I think it makes
And then you know what? The whole thing takes the whole world
That's
down.
right. That's right. That's why my
That's the danger.
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
That's why my plea is the world leaders need to quit this nonsense of talking about their differences and to realize how interdependent we are and the radical elements to tie the Middle East back to the discussion. It's a world question, not the United States. When you have a country like Greece, we all need to take a look and say, how would you like it if you went to the bank and it closed because the government closed it because they didn't want everybody to go capture their money? Jack, we all need to take a deep breath and realize how independent we are on these issues. We need to look at oil. We need to use less. We need to take the model that has been part of the Chinese culture forever. It doesn't matter.
Reserve.
Doesn't matter your revenue. You save a portion.
Yeah.
You save
Always
a portion.
save a portion for a rainy day.
Exactly.
Exactly.
We aren't doing that in this country. We're allowing the country to carry too much debt.
Yeah, sir,
and as
sure.
individuals, we carry too much debt. We need to look at Greece's
You live
decision.
on borrowed money.
That's right.
As a country, we do. As a person, as an individual, we do too.
Too much
Too much.
is
Okay,
done on
very good.
debt. And even people that make tremendous amounts of money, they want the next biggest house, so they go into debt more. The debt picture is just incredible.
Yeah, all right.
So my one piece of recommendation is, from the energy piece, use as little as you can.
Try
Conserve
to
every chance you
reduce
get.
your dependence.
Absolutely. Reduce our dependence on the people in the Middle East that don't like us,
Okay, all right.
the people on the Middle East that are threatening us. The less we buy their oil, the less money they have to do their
The
mischief.
better off we are.
So use less energy, save your money, and look at these issues because they do affect us. I read this morning about one particular bank and the vulnerability of Bank of America with the Greece issue. And the article said, Bank of America has about 300 some million with loans to Greece. Almost insignificant
Very little amount,
to a bank that has several trillion of assets. However, the bank has billions in loans to several of the countries that are very tied to Greece's stability.
Yeah, it's kind of
So it all becomes very independent.
direct or indirect, all related.
All becomes
All
very
related,
interdependent.
all tie all one together as a ball. As a ball, it is kind of like a ball of shreds which is tied all together in a disorder. So one goes down, everything goes down.
Exactly.
Right. So my dear audience, today it's one of the very rare chance you get a real professionals to talk about our problems. To my audience, thank you very much for watching the show. And to my dear brother, dear guest, Drexel Smith, thank you very much for taking time for shedding lights on the issues with our audiences, especially when you go from 1, 2, 3, 4, all those 4 steps they are so clearly laid out. This is our way out, no other choices.
Jack, it's always good to be on your show.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. And my audience, see you next time.